I asked you all to come because there's something we've been missing, he said. Something important. The room fell silent. This company runs on teamwork, hard work, dedication, and care. But somewhere along the way, we forgot to look at the people who do the silent work, the ones who show up early, stay late, and never ask for credit. Some employees shifted in their seats. A few looked at the janitor, suddenly realizing what this was about. This man, the CEO continued, placing a hand gently on the janitor's shoulder, has been working here for years. He has never complained, never asked for anything. But yesterday, I found him in tears. And not because of the job, but because of life. Life that became too heavy. The janitor looked down, embarrassed. But the CEO wasn't done. He turned to the managers. Tell me, how many of you know what your team members are going through? How many of you check in not just on work, but on the human being doing the work? No one answered. Some looked guilty. Some looked uncomfortable. But all of them listened. The CEO walked slowly across the room. We have policies for productivity, targets for sales, plans for growth. But what about support? What about awareness? What about compassion? The room was still quiet. He continued. We cannot call ourselves a strong company if the people holding us together are suffering in silence. We cannot succeed if the foundation is cracking. And people are our foundation. Some employees nodded, understanding where he was going. So today, the CEO said, we start changing that. He turned to the janitor again. With your permission, I'd like to share what you told me. Not the private details, but the struggle, the pressure, the feeling of being unseen. The janitor hesitated. He wasn't used to being the center of attention. But he also realized something important. Maybe this wasn't just about him anymore. He nodded quietly. The CEO faced the room. He has been dealing with medical bills for his family, working long hours, doing night shifts, and barely making it home in time to rest. He never asked for more, never complained. But it reached a point where he couldn't hold back anymore. A soft wave of sympathy spread across the room. Some people lowered their eyes, feeling the weight of his quiet suffering. And he is not the only one, the CEO added. There are others here who carry silent burdens, and today we stop ignoring that. The janitor's eyes filled, but he quickly wiped them. The CEO stepped back and said firmly, starting today, we are changing the culture of this company. We will create programs that offer real support, financial guidance, mental health resources, a system where managers truly know their teams. People exchanged impressed glances, and every one of you, the CEO continued, will help build this new culture, one based not only on work, but on humanity. He turned to the janitor, and it starts with him. Because sometimes the strongest change begins with the quietest voice. The janitor felt overwhelmed. The room applauded softly, not out of pity, but out of respect. When the meeting ended, several employees approached the janitor. They shook his hand, offered support, thanked him for his years of work. It felt strange, unfamiliar, but also healing as they walked out together. The CEO quietly said to him, this is only the beginning. We're going to make things better for you, for everyone. For the first time in a long while, the janitor felt hope growing inside him, steady, warm and real, and neither of them knew it yet. But what happened next would change the heart of the company forever. The days following the meeting moved. Differently within the company, people who once hurried past each other without a second glance now slowed down, offering small greetings or simply making room for others to pass. It wasn't a dramatic change, but it was noticeable. A warmth had begun spreading, subtle but steady. Like sunlight slowly filling a room, the janitor felt this change more than anyone. For years he had walked the halls quietly, doing his work without expecting much more than a simple nod. Now employees greeted him with genuine smiles. Some asked how he was doing. Others thanked him for his work. He wasn't used to this kind of attention, and in the beginning, it felt overwhelming. But over time, he realized it wasn't pity. It was respect. The CEO, true to his word, didn't let the moment pass without action. He met with the managers daily, working on new policies that focused on the well-being of employees. Not just their job performance, their lives, their challenges, their needs. One morning, about a week after the meeting, the CEO asked the janitor to join him in a private office. The janitor walked in nervously, unsure of what this meeting was about. He sat down carefully, his hands resting on his knees. The CEO smiled gently. "I have something I want to discuss with you." The janitor nodded, waiting. "I've been thinking a lot about your situation," the CEO continued. "Your long hours, your family responsibilities, and everything you've been carrying alone." The janitor lowered his eyes, not wanting to be a burden. "Sir, I'm okay. I can manage. I just needed a moment that day." The CEO shook his head lightly. "You shouldn't have to just manage. You deserve more than that. You've given this company years of hard work. You've taken care of this place as if it were your own. It's time the company takes care of you too." The janitor looked up, unsure what was coming next. The CEO slid a folder across the desk toward him. "Inside, this is something we've decided to do. Not only for you, but for employees in similar situations. But you'll be the first." With trembling hands, the janitor opened the folder. At first, he didn't understand what he was looking at. Then his eyes widened. It was a promotion. A real promotion. A new position, better hours, better pay, better benefits. But that wasn't the only thing in the folder. There were also documents for a company-backed support plan, help for medical bills, access to counseling, and flexible scheduling. The janitor's lips parted slightly as he stared at the papers. He tried to speak, but no words came out. The CEO leaned forward. "You have worked here longer than many of our managers. You know this building better than anyone. You care about this place, and that kind of dedication deserves recognition." The janitor blinked, and tears slowly filled his eyes. "Sir, I never asked for this." "I didn't expect you didn't ask because you didn't know you could," the CEO said gently. "And that's where we failed you. But we're fixing that now." For a moment, the room felt silent except for the soft hum of the air conditioner. The janitor wiped his face quickly, embarrassed to be crying again. The CEO smiled kindly. "There's no need to hide your tears. They're honest. They're human." The janitor swallowed hard before finally speaking. "Thank you. I don't know how I can ever repay you." "You already have," the CEO replied. "With years of loyalty and quiet strength." The janitor looked at the papers again, still struggling to believe it was real. His life, his family's life, would change because of this. The weight he had been carrying for so long suddenly didn't feel so crushing. But the CEO wasn't done. "There's one more thing," he said. The janitor looked up. Surprised. "We're creating a new program," the CEO explained. "A bridge between staff and management. Someone who helps identify problems early. Someone employees can talk to without fear. Someone who understands the kind of struggles people face." The janitor listened carefully. "I want you to help us build it," the CEO said. "You've lived through the struggles others are afraid to speak about. You understand them? Your experience matters." The janitor's eyes widened again. "Me? You want me to help guide the company?" The CEO nodded. "Your voice will help us shape a better workplace. A more human one." For a long moment, the janitor didn't know what to say. Him, someone who had cleaned floors for years, someone who kept to himself. Someone who thought he had no voice was being asked to help guide change. It was overwhelming. But it was also empowering. He nodded slowly. "I'll do my best." "That's all I ever ask," the CEO said. The two men stood and shook hands. But that handshake felt different from the first ones they had exchanged. This time, it wasn't a handshake between a CEO and a janitor. It was a handshake between two people who understood each other and were ready to create something better. When the janitor walked out of the office, people could see something different in his posture. His shoulders didn't sag like they used to. His steps weren't small or hesitant. There was something steady about him now. News of his promotion spread quietly at first, then more openly as the CEO made the announcement at a staff gathering later that week. The room erupted in warm applause. Some people stood. Some clapped slowly, thoughtfully, realizing the importance of what was happening. This wasn't just a promotion for one man. It was a turning point for the company. After the gathering, employees approached the janitor again, just to congratulate him, but to thank him. Some shared their own struggles quietly, as if his courage had given them permission to speak. He listened to them all, offering small words of comfort. And for the first time, he realized how important his new role might become. Over the next few weeks, the company transformed. Support rooms were set up for private conversations. Managers received new training on empathy, communication, and emotional awareness. Flexible schedules were introduced. Emergency support funds were created for employees facing unexpected life challenges, and the janitor, now holding a new title, played a part in all of it. The day began long before the sun had properly risen, with the streets still wrapped in a quiet that felt almost heavy. The shop lights glowed faintly against the early morning dim, and the air outside held that cool stillness that only existed before the world fully woke up. It was at this hour that the CEO decided to walk in quietly, without telling a single manager or staff member. He wanted to see the place the way it really was, without the pressure of his presence, without the rushed cleaning, the staged greetings, or the forced smiles people usually wore when the top boss arrived. He wasn't dressed like someone important. He wore a simple jacket, plain trousers, and a cap pulled low enough that no one would recognize him at first glance. To anyone passing by, he looked like an early customer or maybe a delivery driver. That was exactly the point. He had built this company from the ground up, but lately he felt as if he was losing touch with how things truly worked inside the stores. Reports and meetings didn't tell the full story. Numbers didn't reveal how people were treated. So he decided to see everything for himself. He unlocked the side entrance with his master key. Inside, the store was dim, except for a few lights in the back. The shelves were already neatly arranged the night before, but the floor still needed cleaning, and the smell of cleaning supplies hung faintly in the air. Usually, at this hour, he expected to hear equipment being rolled out or soft chatter from the staff preparing for the day, but instead, he heard something else. A sound he didn't expect. It was quiet at first, soft enough that he thought he might be imagining it. But as he stepped farther inside, the sound grew clearer. Someone was trying to muffle their sobs. Not loud crying, just that deep, aching kind of sadness a person tries to hide but can't. He froze for a moment, sure of what he had walked into. The sound was coming from the back area near the storage rooms. With slow, careful steps, he followed it. As he turned the corner, he saw someone sitting on an upside-down bucket near the cleaning supplies. It was the janitor, an older man with tired eyes and hands that looked worn from years of hard work. The man didn't notice him at first. He had his face buried in his hands, his shoulders shaking lightly. The CEO stood there, unable to move for a moment. He had seen employees stressed, frustrated, annoyed, but not like this. This was the kind of emotion that came from something deeper. He didn't want to startle the man, so he cleared his throat softly. The janitor immediately straightened up, wiping his face quickly as if trying to erase the evidence of his tears. He didn't even look up at first, just kept brushing at his cheeks. He was embarrassed to be caught like that. "Sorry," the janitor muttered, his voice hoarse. "Didn't hear anyone come in. I'll get back to work right away." His instinct was to apologize, as if emotions were a mistake, as if crying made him less professional. The CEO felt something tighten in his chest. He stepped closer, keeping his tone calm and friendly. "It's all right," he said. "I didn't mean to bother you. I just wanted to check if you're okay." The janitor finally looked up, only to look away again quickly, embarrassed. "I'm fine. Really. Just a rough morning." There was no anger in his voice, just exhaustion that didn't come from one bad day, but from many. The kind that built up slowly until a person couldn't hold it anymore. "You don't look fine," the CEO said softly. He pulled up a crate and sat down across from him, trying to make the moment less intimidating. "You don't have to tell me anything if you don't want to, but you don't need to pretend." The janitor looked at him more carefully now. Maybe he sensed something different about this stranger. Or maybe he was simply too tired to keep hiding. It's just... The man took a shaky breath. Sometimes it gets to be too much. The CEO nodded, saying nothing, waiting. The janitor rubbed his forehead as if trying to gather the courage to speak. I had to come in last night too. And this morning. I barely slept a few hours. Why? The CEO asked gently. Short staff, the man said with a weary shrug. 2 people quit. No one replaced them. So I'm trying to keep the place clean on my own. I don't want the managers to think I'm slacking, but it's hard to keep up. The CEO felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his voice neutral. Did you tell anyone you needed help? The janitor let out a humorless laugh. I did. They said everyone is struggling and I just need to manage. Yesterday, the supervisor said, if I can't keep up, they might reduce my hours. That part made the CEO sit back a little. Reduce his hours when he was already doing extra work? It didn't make sense. It was the opposite of fair. The janitor continued, speaking slowly, as if each word carried weight. My wife is sick. She's been going through treatment. I'm the only one working right now. So I can't risk losing this job. I got overwhelmed for a moment. It happens. He tried to smile, but it was the kind of smile that didn't reach the eyes. The CEO watched him carefully, feeling a heavy mix of frustration and sadness. He hadn't come here expecting to uncover something personal or emotional. He definitely didn't expect to find someone crying alone at dawn. But now that he had, he knew he couldn't ignore it. Thank you for telling me, the CEO said softly. You didn't have to share all that. The janitor nodded, more out of habit than agreement. I shouldn't have said so much. I'm sorry. Please don't mention this to anyone. I don't want trouble, the CEO hesitated. He wanted to reassure him, to tell him nothing bad would happen, but at this moment, the janitor didn't even know who he was. Maybe that was better for now. People tended to speak more honestly when they didn't know they were talking to the top boss instead. He simply said, You're not in trouble. Not at all. The janitor stared at the ground, the exhaustion in his shoulders still visible. The CEO could tell this wasn't someone looking for pity. This was someone who needed support, someone carrying more weight than anyone realized. For a few moments, the two of them sat in silence. The store felt strangely still around them, as if giving them space. Then the CEO asked, When was the last time you had a full day off? The janitor thought for a moment, then shook his head. I'm not even sure. Maybe 2 weeks ago? Or more. And this is all because the store is short-staffed? Yes, the janitor said. But I try to manage. I just don't want them to think I'm causing problems. I've always tried to keep my head down and do my job. The CEO felt something shift inside him. He came here hoping to observe. But instead, he found a clear sign that something was deeply wrong, something he hadn't seen from behind the office walls or through polished reports. The janitor wiped his face one last time. Taking a deep breath, as if preparing to get up and continue working. Please don't worry about what you saw, he said quietly. I'll be all right. The CEO looked at him with a calm but steady expression. Maybe you will. But maybe you shouldn't have to go through this alone.
How?
The janitor looked confused. What do you mean? The CEO didn't answer directly. Not yet. Instead, he said, Let's just say I'm here to help. More than you think. For the first time, the janitor looked at him with a mix of curiosity and hope. As if trying to understand what kind of stranger spoke like that, the CEO stood up slowly and said, Let me take a look around the store first. Then we'll talk again. The janitor nodded, though he still seemed unsure. As the CEO walked away, his mind was already racing. The quiet visit he planned had turned into something else entirely. He didn't know what he would uncover next, but he knew one thing for certain. This wasn't just a small problem. This was a sign that something needed to change, starting. Now, the store slowly began to brighten as the morning sun pushed through the windows. But the quiet feeling inside the building didn't change. The CEO walked through the aisles with a steady pace, observing everything with careful eyes. The shelves were well stocked, the displays arranged neatly, but there were small details he noticed, Little things most customers wouldn't see but a trained eye could not ignore. Dust gathered under the racks, smudges left on cart handles, a few boxes left in corners where they shouldn't be. These were signs of a place falling behind, not because people didn't care, but because too few were doing too much. He walked slowly, giving himself time to think about what he had just heard from the janitor. The man's voice still rang in his ears, the tiredness, the worry, the way he tried to hide his pain. No one should feel that unsafe in their job, especially someone who was giving more than what was asked. The CEO knew that not everything could be seen from reports, but hearing it directly from the person living through it that made it real, that made it personal. As he walked toward the front of the store, he heard footsteps from the back entrance. The morning shift staff were starting to arrive. Their voices were low, sleepy, and rushed. The CEO stepped aside so he wouldn't draw attention to himself. He still wore the cap pulled low, and his clothes didn't make him stand out. He wanted to blend in, just a regular man walking through the store. A young cashier walked past him, yawning as she clocked in. Not far behind her, 2 workers pulled out carts with new items to restock. They were whispering to each other. He said he cleaned everything last night. But it doesn't look like it, one of them muttered, sounding annoyed. I told the supervisor the same thing, the other replied. He said to report it again. I don't know why no one holds him responsible. They walked away before the CEO could hear more. He frowned. He had just seen the janitor exhausted, emotionally drained, and overwhelmed that people believed he wasn't doing enough. Or maybe they were told that. Something wasn't adding up. The CEO decided to walk back toward the storage area. When he arrived, he found the janitor already working again, wiping down the floor as if nothing had happened earlier. His movements were slow but steady. The bucket and mop sat beside him, the same bucket he had been sitting on in tears not long ago. The CEO watched him for a moment before stepping closer. You didn't need to start so quickly, he said quietly. The janitor looked up, surprised. I have to finish before the store opens fully. If the supervisor comes in and sees I'm behind, it'll be trouble. Oh. The CEO shook his head gently. You shouldn't have to rush like that. The janitor gave a small shrug. I don't have much choice. There was something in his voice that wasn't just tired. It was resigned. Like he had accepted this treatment as normal, the CEO leaned against the wall. Can I ask you something? The janitor paused mid-wipe. Sure, those extra shifts you worked. Were they approved, or did someone pressure you into taking them? The janitor hesitated for a moment, then answered in a low voice. They didn't force me, but they made it clear that if I didn't do it, they'd assume I wasn't committed to the job. They said the store needed people who could handle the pressure. The CEO felt a sharp discomfort in his chest. Pressure was one thing. Quiet threats were another. Did you ever ask management for help, or request another person to assist you? The janitor nodded. Many times. But the answer was always the same. We're waiting for approval, or you'll just have to manage, till things settle. But things never settle. The CEO watched him for a long moment. He could see the truth in the man's eyes. He wasn't lazy. He wasn't neglectful. He was exhausted and unsupported. If someone from higher management came here, the CEO asked slowly, what would they say about your work? The janitor gave a small, sad smile. They'd say I'm falling behind, that I don't meet expectations. I've heard supervisors talking behind my back. They think I don't know, but I do, and he added quietly. But they never ask why. They just assume. Those words hit the CEO hard. He wanted to tell the janitor who he really was. He wanted to say, I'm the CEO, and I'm going to fix this. But the moment didn't feel right yet. He needed to understand more. He needed to see the full picture before revealing his identity. How long have you been working here? The CEO asked. A little over 5 years, the janitor answered. It was a stable job at first. I liked it. The team used to be bigger. The workload was manageable. People respected each other. What changed? The CEO asked. The janitor let out a slow breath. New supervisors came in. Some good, some not so good. They started cutting hours. Told us to do more with less. Then people started quitting. The ones who stayed got pushed harder. I tried to adjust. But lately, his voice cracked slightly. Lately, it's been too much. The CEO nodded, understanding more than he let on. Suddenly, voices approached from the hallway. 2 supervisors were walking toward the storage area. The CEO stepped aside and pretended to check a shelf. He kept his head low so they wouldn't recognize him. One supervisor, a tall man with a clipboard, spoke sharply. "You're still not done with the floor?" he said to the janitor, not noticing the CEO standing nearby. The janitor stiffened. "I'm almost finished." "It almost isn't good enough," the supervisor snapped. "We open in less than half an hour. We can't have customers walking into a place that looks like this." The CEO swallowed back the irritation that rose in him. He watched carefully. "Sir, I worked late last night, and I got here as early as I don't want excuses," the supervisor interrupted. "Just finish your job. And hurry." The janitor lowered his head and nodded. The second supervisor looked around briefly, her expression unreadable. "We also noticed some dust on the shelves." "Did you miss that last night?" The janitor bit the inside of his cheek. "I didn't get to it." There was too much again with excuses. The first supervisor cut in. The CEO felt his hands curl slightly. He had seen enough, but he stayed quiet for now. The supervisors walked away, talking between themselves about standards and reporting poor performance. The janitor stood still for a moment, holding the mop tightly as if trying not to let their words weigh him down. When the hallway was empty again, the CEO stepped forward. "You didn't deserve that," he said softly. The janitor didn't look up. "It's fine. I'm used to it. Shouldn't be," the CEO replied. The janitor finally looked at him. His eyes were tired but kind. "It's just the job. Some people have to take things quietly." He gave a small, sad smile. "I can't afford to make trouble." The CEO took a slow breath. "What if things didn't have to be this way?" The janitor frowned, not understanding. "What do you mean?" The CEO paused, choosing his words carefully. "Let's just say, maybe someone who can make a difference is paying attention now." The janitor's eyebrows pulled together. "Are you someone from head office?" The CEO gave a gentle smile. "Something like that?" Before the janitor could ask anything else, more employees began to arrive, filling the store with noise and motion. The CEO didn't want to create a scene or draw attention to himself. "We'll talk again," he said quietly. "I promise." The janitor nodded slowly, unsure but hopeful. The CEO walked away, his steps firm, his decision already made. The moment he had entered the store this morning, he had planned only to observe. But after what he had seen, after hearing the truth with his own ears, that plan had changed. He wasn't going to walk out and forget what happened. He wasn't going to leave things as they were. He was going to find out everything, the good, the bad, the hidden. And when he was done, this store, and maybe even the whole company, would be different because now it was personal. The janitor thought he was speaking to a stranger, but he had no idea the person he was opening up to was the one man who had the power to change everything. The morning grew busier as more employees filled the store. In the quiet corners that once carried the weight of unspoken feelings now hummed with routine activity. The CEO walked through the aisles again, observing not just the work being done, but the way people moved, the way they spoke to one another, and the tiredness behind their smiles. He had seen enough to know that something was wrong, but he wanted to hear everything directly from the people living through it. He made his way to the small break, a room tucked behind the customer service desk. It wasn't much, just a table, a few mismatched chairs, and a coffee machine that looked older than the store itself. One staff member had just warmed their food and left, leaving the room empty for the moment. The CEO stepped inside and waited. He didn't want to call people over. He wanted them to walk in naturally. It didn't take long for someone to enter. A shelf stalker walked in with a sigh and dropped heavily into a chair. She rubbed her forehead as if fighting a headache. After a moment, she said quietly to herself, "Another long day." Before she noticed him, the CEO spoke gently. "Rough morning?" She nearly jumped in surprise. "Oh, I didn't see you there." She quickly straightened up, embarrassed. "Sorry, just tired." It's all right, he said with a warm tone. You can be honest. I'm just passing through. She looked at him carefully. Are you from another store? Something like that, he replied, keeping his voice neutral. I'm trying to understand what things are like here. How the work feels. How the team is doing. Her shoulders relaxed a little. Well, it's been stressful lately. She hesitated, then added, but you probably already know that. Maybe, he said, but I'd like to hear your side. She let out a breath she had clearly been holding in. We're short-staffed. Really short, and the supervisors keep pushing us harder. Every day they remind us that the store needs to meet numbers, that we have to move faster. Some of us skip breaks just to catch up, because if we don't, they complain. Do they complain to you directly? He asked. Sometimes, she said, but mostly behind our backs. It's like they forget we're people too. They just see tasks, not the people doing them. The CEO nodded, taking everything in without revealing who he was. She continued, everyone's tired. Everyone's stressed. And don't even ask about the cleaning situation. They blame the janitor for everything, but he's one person doing the work of 3. It's not fair. The CEO's eyes narrowed slightly. Do many people feel the same way? Everyone, she said. But no one wants to speak up. No one wants to risk their job. Before he could respond, the break room door opened again, and 2 more employees walked in. They looked surprised to see him, but nodded politely before going straight to the coffee machine. The CEO stood, giving the first employee a small nod. Thank you for sharing that with me. She smiled weakly. I hope it helps in some way. It will, he said quietly. He slipped out of the room before anyone else could ask questions. The moment he stepped back into the hallway, he felt more certain than ever about what he needed to do. This was more than one man's struggle. This was a pattern, one that had gone unseen by people who should have known better. He headed toward the office area where the supervisors worked. A few employees glanced at him, but no one questioned him. He still looked like an outsider from another branch. When he reached the office door, he found it slightly open. Voices floated out. Honestly, I don't know how much longer we can put up with him, one supervisor said. He's slow, always behind, and every time I check, something's unfinished, another voice added. He's been emotional lately, too. Saw him wiping his eyes the other day. If he can't handle the job, maybe he should step down. We need people who can keep up. The CEO felt a cold calm settle over him. They were talking about the janitor, again criticizing him without understanding the workload they themselves had created. Another supervisor chimed in. Management doesn't need to know all the details. We just report that things are under control. No need to bring up every little complaint. That statement made the CEO's jaw clench. It confirmed everything. Concerns weren't being reported to upper management. Issues were being hidden. Employees were afraid to speak up. Supervisors were controlling the narrative. He stepped away from the door before they noticed him listening. His mind was racing, but he knew he needed more information, more truth. He found the janitor again, this time organizing supplies in the back corner of the storage room. The man looked surprised when he saw him. I thought you'd left, the janitor said. No, the CEO replied softly. I wanted to hear more if you're willing to talk. The janitor hesitated, then nodded. Sure, but why are you so interested? The CEO pulled up a crate to sit on. Because what you're going through matters. And I want to understand it. The janitor seemed moved by the sincerity in his voice. He put down the supplies and leaned against the wall. For a moment, the 2 men sat quietly before the janitor began speaking. It wasn't always like this, he said. When I first started here, people cared. Supervisors helped when things got busy. They treated everyone with respect. What changed? The CEO asked. New leadership came in. Some wanted to make numbers look better, so they cut hours, reduced staff, but kept the workload the same. They said it was temporary, but temporary never ended. The CEO listened carefully, and when people complained, the CEO asked, they were told to handle it, or they were made to feel like troublemakers. After a while, people stopped speaking up. The CEO nodded slowly. And you? The janitor laughed softly, though it wasn't a happy sound. I learned to keep quiet. I needed the job. I have a family to take care of. My wife has been sick, and the bills, they don't stop. His eyes lowered. Some days I come here so tired that just lifting the mop feels heavy, but I still try. I always try. CEO felt a wave of respect for the man sitting in front of him. This was someone who didn't complain, didn't blame others, didn't make excuses. He worked, he endured, and he carried burdens silently. You shouldn't have to struggle like this alone, the CEO said gently. Before the janitor could respond, the door swung open. A supervisor stepped inside, holding a clipboard. When he saw the CEO, he frowned. Who are you? The CEO stood calmly. Just visiting. Well, this area is for staff only, the supervisor said sharply. If you need help, go to the front desk. The janitor looked nervous, as if afraid the stranger might get in trouble. The CEO kept his voice polite but firm. I'm fine here. The supervisor crossed his arms. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave this area. The CEO looked at him steadily. And I'm going to ask you something. How many people did you lose from your cleaning team this year? The supervisor blinked. What does that matter? And how many times has this man asked for support? The CEO continued. That's internal information, the supervisor said sharply. You don't need to know that. The CEO's expression didn't change. But I do, and I will. The supervisor opened his mouth to argue, but the CEO raised a hand. We will talk later. There was a quiet authority in his words, one that made the supervisor step back, confused but silent. The janitor stared at the CEO with wide eyes. Who are you really? The CEO took a gentle breath and finally said, I'm the one who should have known what was happening here. I'm the one responsible for this place. The CEO. The janitor's face went pale. He stood frozen, unsure of what to say. You? He whispered. But why didn't you say anything earlier? Because I wanted to hear the truth, the CEO answered softly. And I wanted you to feel safe enough to say it. The janitor looked overwhelmed, unsure whether to sit or stand, speak or stay silent. The CEO continued gently, and thank you. Thank you for trusting me. What you told MIT matters. More than you know. The janitor swallowed hard. I'm sorry if I said anything wrong. I didn't mean to complain. You didn't do anything wrong, the CEO said firmly. If anything, I should be apologizing to you. The older man blinked, stunned. The CEO stood up. I'm not going to let this continue. Not for you, not for anyone else here. The janitor looked at him with a mix of hope and disbelief. Are things really going to change? The CEO nodded. Yes, starting now. For the first time that morning, the janitor seemed to relax just a little. His shoulders lowered and some of the fear in his eyes faded. The CEO placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. You've been strong for too long. Now, it's my turn. He walked out of the storage room with a clear plan forming in his mind. He would speak with every employee. He would dig into every report, every hidden complaint, every ignored request. He would uncover everything the supervisors tried to hide. And when he was done, nothing would stay the same. The janitor had spent years feeling invisible, but now the CEO had seen him, and that simple moment was about to change the entire company. The morning after the company meeting, the whole building felt different. People walked in with curious faces, whispering softly to one another as they headed to their stations. It was as if everyone sensed something big was happening, something that went beyond the usual work updates or changes in schedules. The CEO arrived earlier than usual. He didn't bring any assistants with him, and he didn't carry the usual tablet of reports. He seemed deep in thought, as if every step he took carried the weight of everything he had learned the day before. He walked through the lobby quietly, greeting people with a gentle nod. Some employees were surprised to see him walking alone, but he didn't mind the attention. He was focused on one thing. He wanted to find the janitor. He made his way through the hallway, where the cleaning team usually started their day. He didn't see the man there, so he continued searching. A few employees stopped him to say good morning, and he smiled politely. But it was clear he was looking for someone specific. Finally, he found him in the break area. The janitor was sitting alone at a small round table with a cup of tea that had gone cold. His eyes looked tired, the kind of tired that sleep couldn't fix. When he noticed the CEO standing near him, he quickly tried to stand up. The CEO raised a hand gently. "Please, sit. I just want to talk." The janitor hesitated but nodded, slowly taking his seat again. The CEO pulled out the chair across from him and sat down as if they were co-workers simply sharing a quiet moment. "I've been thinking a lot about what you told me yesterday," the CEO began softly. "About your family, your struggles, the pressure you've been under." The janitor lowered his eyes. "I didn't mean to bother you with all that, sir. It just slipped out. I never wanted to cause trouble." "You didn't cause trouble," the CEO said. "You opened my eyes." The janitor looked up slowly, confused. The CEO continued for a long time. "I believed the company was doing well simply because our numbers were good. I forgot that behind every report, behind every achievement, there are real people. People doing their best every day, carrying their own burdens. Yesterday, when I saw you crying, it reminded me that success isn't just about profit. It's about the people who make that profit possible." The janitor stayed quiet, unsure how to respond. The CEO took a breath and gently asked, "Did you tell anyone else about what you're going through?" The janitor shook his head. "No, sir. I didn't want anyone thinking I'm weak or unable to do my job." "You are not weak," the CEO said with a steady voice. "You are someone who has been carrying way too much alone." For the first time since the meeting, the janitor's eyes softened. Something inside him shifted relief mixed with disbelief. The CEO leaned forward slightly. "I want to help. Not out of charity, but because you deserve support. No one should be drowning silently while working so hard." The janitor swallowed hard. "Sir, I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything yet," the CEO replied. Just then, a few employees walked into the break area. When they noticed the CEO sitting with the janitor, they paused, unsure if they should stay or leave. The CEO smiled at them reassuringly, and they relaxed, continuing with their morning routine. But what happened next surprised everyone. The CEO stood up and said loudly enough for those nearby to hear, "Come with me." The janitor blinked, confused. "Where are we going?" "To show the company something important," the CEO answered. They walked together through the hallways. Employees began noticing them two figures walking side by side, one in a crisp suit and the other in a simple janitor uniform. People whispered. They had never seen anything like it. When they reached the main floor, CEO asked an assistant to call all the managers to the large meeting room. It didn't take long until everyone gathered inside. Filling the space with curious eyes, the CEO walked to the front of the room with the janitor. Standing quietly beside him, people exchanged confused glances. But before anyone could ask a question, the CEO spoke. He walked through the building with a new purpose. People no longer avoided his eyes or hurried past him. Instead, they approached him, trusting him, confiding in him. He was no longer invisible. One afternoon, the CEO found him standing by the large window overlooking the parking lot. The sun was setting, painting the sky with soft orange and pink colors. "Busy day?" the CEO asked. The man nodded with a small smile. "But a good one. People are opening up. They're talking more. It feels different now." The CEO stood beside him, looking out at the fading light. "You helped make that possible." The man shook his head humbly. "You gave me the chance." The CEO turned slightly. "Sometimes all a person needs is someone to believe in them. You've given that belief to others now." The janitor looked down thoughtfully. "I just don't want anyone feeling the way I did that day." And that the CEO said softly, "Is exactly why you're the perfect person for this role." The two stood in silence for a while. Watching the sun disappear behind the buildings, it felt symbolic. Like one chapter closing and another one beginning. As weeks turned into months, the changes became more permanent. Productivity improved, not because people were pushed harder, but because they felt valued. The workplace became calmer, kinder, more open. The company gained a reputation for having one of the most supportive work environments in the region. Job applications increased. Turnover dropped. Managers felt more connected to their teams. and employees felt heard. One evening, as the man walked through the hallways, no longer cleaning tools in hand, but a small notebook filled with employee concerns and ideas, he paused in the very spot where everything had changed. The first day the CEO had found him in tears. He stood there quietly, remembering how heavy his heart had felt at that moment, how small and unseen he had felt. Now, standing in the same spot, he felt something completely different. He felt proud of himself, proud of the company, proud of the journey. He took a slow breath and whispered a soft thank you, not to anyone around him, but to life itself for giving him another chance. Just then, the CEO walked by and noticed him standing there. "Everything okay?" he asked. The man turned with a gentle smile. "Yes, everything is more than okay." The CEO smiled back. "Ready for tomorrow's meeting?" The man nodded. "I am." They walked side by side down the hallway. Two very different lives connected by one unexpected moment of honesty. And as they walked, the man realized something important. Sometimes the smallest voice creates the biggest change. Sometimes the quietest moment becomes the beginning of something powerful. And sometimes, all it takes is one person who finally feels seen. The company would never be the same again, and neither would he.